Hello again, and welcome to another one of my ongoing HTML5 The Basic series. In this episode, I'm going to cover the table tag. But not just the table tag, I'm also going to cover the TR, the TD, the T-head, T-body, and T-foot tags. This is kind of like an episode that I've kind of waited on in a lot of areas to try and like smash it all together as much as possible. So let's just dive in. So a table is used for displaying tabular data. So anything that looks like a spreadsheet, for example. It used to be back in the days that we would use tables to actually do whole layouts and structure web pages because we didn't really have anything better. Nowadays we definitely do, and that's a wonderful thing because we have CSS, and that basically removes the need to use tables for anything but actually using it for tabular data. To get this out of the way, you should never use a table for design. You should always use CSS or other methods. There's no reason for you to use a table to design a layout or to set up the structure of a page in any way, shape, or form. Now that that's out of the way, let's say we want to actually make some tabular data. So here we go. Let's start with T-head. So as you can see, I've structured this with a table, and I have a T-head, a T-body, and a T-foot. These are all optional. You don't actually have to have a T-head, a T-body, or a T-foot whatsoever. We can just leave them with a table and then put a TR, which is a table row. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in some TRs here. So this will create a row in each one of these little subsections we have here. And then we got those in there. We're going to do TDs. Now, this is where things are a little bit different in that the table head has a special TH for table header. Basically what this does is by default it kind of bolds the text a little and offsets it a little so it actually works as the header to the table. It doesn't actually do much other than that, and you can use TDs just as much, but use one or the other, don't use both. So in this one we're going to use THs because that is the semantically proper way to do it, and we'll use TDs for the body, and there is nothing for the footer, so we are just going to use TDs. So there we go. So this means we have basically one row with one divider in each. That'd basically be a table with one cell in each row. So what we're going to do is we're going to triplicate that in each of these so that we now have basically 3 rows with 3 cells. So that's 9 total cells. And over here on the header we're going to say buyer, item, and quantity. We're just going to do QTY. Okay, so the buyer is going to be Joe, and Joe is going to have, let's say, 5. Oh, I put that wrong one. There are 5 apples because we are going to be a fruit stand. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put several rows in here in the body for each of our different clients. Right? So Joe, and then Frank, and then Jill, and then Diane. There we go. So we're going to say apples, and let's just leave them with apples because let's say we're just an apples cart. So we're going to say we're going to have item. Let's go ahead and say number of apples. Let's get this fancy. Then this is going to be number of candy apples. There we go. Okay. So Joe's going to have 5, 5. Frank's going to have 0, 5 because he's got a sweet tooth. And Jill's going to have 10, 10 because she just has a lot. And then Diane is simply going to have 1 of each. Now, this is nice because we can actually use the T-foot to do something like totals, for example. That's usually the coolest way to use them. So we're going to say total. And then in this one, we're going to do 5, 15, 16, and I believe it's 5, 10, 21. There we go. So now we have these totals. Let's save this off, and let's go ahead and take a look at our web page. All right, so now that we're at our web page, you can see that we have our buyer column, our number of apples and number of candy apples sold. And that's the basics of tabular data. This can be fully styled with CSS, both by targeting TRs, TDs, and any of the other data that you need. But it's also really nice because you can add classes, and then you can have really, really fancy styled tables. And you can make some pretty amazing looking things with simple tabular data just by throwing a couple of, a little bit of padding here and there. That's pretty much the basics for tables. The other thing to note is at any point inside here, you can do any other HTML. There's no limits to it. So you can add images, you can put links in there. There's no issues with that whatsoever. And traditionally, this stuff's not going to be created in HTML. Usually you're going to have the structure built out by whatever programming language you're using in the back end for a database-driven website. But that's obviously just if you're doing that. So I hope you learned something, and have a good one. Peace.